Call to order the Bristol, Tennessee City Council meeting of July 9th, 2024 to order. Mary Lee, would you take the roll?
Yes, sir. Lettrell?
Here.
Turner?
Yes.
Firerobin?
Here.
Hutton?
Yes.
Powers?
Welcome and thank you everyone for attending. There's a number of opportunities to speak on city business this evening. A sheet explaining those has been made available when entering the meeting room. As we go forward with tonight's agenda, I will note each time when public comment is welcome. In addition, the sign-up sheet has been provided for council at council chambers for those individuals wishing to address City Council. I would now like to ask Vice Mayor Hutton and Councilwoman Powers to lead us in invocation, and Councilwoman Powers for her pledge.
Let's pray. God, we're very grateful that we live in a country where we can be free. We're grateful for those who've served our country and especially for those who gave the last full measure. We're very thankful, Lord, that you have blessed us in ways that we can't even begin to know or fathom. Father, we are often guilty of taking those freedoms for granted. Lord, we ask that you help us not to do that, that we would pour our lives into serving others, to making our community stronger and better, working hard, Lord, to do things in such a way that are pleasing to you. And when we don't, we ask that you bring us to mind of that. Lord, as we do the work of the city tonight, I ask that you help us to do so in a way that is glorifying to you, but also in a way that helps this city to flourish. We ask your blessings upon this time together, and we ask all of this in the awesome name of Jesus. Amen.
Will you join me in our Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any additions to tonight's agenda?
No, Mayor.
Okay. We have one proclamation this evening. It's Park and Recreation Month, and Councilwoman Firerobin will read the proclamation. And Doug Harmon, the chair of the Park and Recreation Commission, will accept that proclamation.
Thank you. Whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including the city of Bristol, Tennessee, and whereas parks and recreation promotes health and wellness, improving the physical and mental health of people who live near parks, and whereas parks and recreation promotes time spent in nature, which positively impacts mental health by increasing cognitive performance and well-being and alleviating illnesses such as depression, attention deficit disorders, and Alzheimer's. And whereas parks and recreation encourages physical activities by providing space for popular sports, hiking trails, swimming pools, and many other activities designed to promote active lifestyles. And whereas Parks and Recreation is a leading provider of healthy meals, nutrition services, and education. And whereas park and recreation programming and educational activities such as out-of-school time programming, youth sports, and environmental education are critical to childhood development. And whereas Parks and Recreation increases a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of business, crime reduction, and is fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community. And whereas Parks and Recreation is essential and adaptable infrastructure that makes our communities resilient in the face of natural disasters and climate change, and whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and whereas the City of Bristol, Tennessee recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Now, therefore, the Mayor of Bristol, Tennessee hereby proclaims July 2024 as Park and Recreation Month, this 9th day of July 2024.
All right, we have no presentations tonight. Next is our Board of Education report, and I believe Secretary Jennifer Henson's here to give us the report.
Yes, hi, I'm filling in for Dr. Tudor as she had a previous engagement tonight. Debbie Darnell and I are going to take her place, or try to. First of all, we had a great summer school. We've been very busy at BTCS this summer. We had roughly 400 students that were attending each day of summer camp, so it was a very good summer session for us. Our high school students focused on credit recovery, and our elementary and middle school sites incorporated English language arts, math, related arts, physical activity, and also acceleration, which was the differentiation time where some of our students needed intervention. Those that didn't need intervention had enrichment opportunities, and all of those were focused around an aviation theme, and I'll talk more about that here in just a second. We're happy to announce that we didn't have any students that were retained due to the third grade law, and several of our students met adequate growth targets during our summer camp, so we're very proud of that. Our students in K through 8 participated in Stan Tucker's Summer Reading Challenge, and they were tasked to read books to earn their wings, and when they did that, they could join Stan's very airy flight crew. So each student had a goal to read either 25 books or to read for 250 minutes by the end of camp. And they kept track of their reading on their flight journal or their log, and at the end of camp, if they met their goal, then they received their wings. And like I said, the enrichment and the related arts classes centered around that theme of flight and aviation, along with career exploration as well. Both our elementary and middle school sites hosted the Bristol, Tennessee Police Department, and they shared about their drone unit and how the unit supports their work. In addition, students learned about what educational opportunities they must have to become part of this as their career path. The middle school took a field trip to Northeast State Community College, and they explored educational opportunities there, which included flying the flight simulator. So that was a fun opportunity, I'm sure. They also visited the Tri-Cities Airport, and they got to tour the control tower and the hangars. Some other trips included in our summer camp was a visit to the Interstate Bowl and Legacy Movie Theater, along with our first ever all sports day. And this was for the elementary students because those that attend summer school don't get to do the summer athletic camps. So high school coaches and athletes provided opportunities for our students in grades 3 through 5 to experience the sports that are available at the high school. And they had a day on THS campus where they rotated, and the students were able to experience some sports that they had never played before, and they were really excited to be able to work with those high school athletes. For our facilities update, we are still working on the secure entryway at Haynesfield, and this is to be completed before the start of school, and at that time, all of our schools will have that secure entryway. Stone Castle upgrades are set to be completed by mid-August, and that'll be just in time for our first home football game and our home soccer games. And you can see the website for updated photos. Our press box renovation is currently ongoing as well, and that was thanks to the generous donation from the Ronnie Pickle family. And our board voted and passed a resolution at our June meeting naming the press box after Ronnie Pickle. That will be publicly recognized in that first week of the first home game. So on that Tuesday, we'll have a soccer game, and then Thursday we plan to have an open house, and then the first Friday night football game will be against East, first home game. So that'll be a fun, exciting week. There's new lights for the football field that are being worked on as well. Southside paving is currently happening and should be completed within a week or two. Definitely will be open by the beginning of school, and that includes the ramps as well, so we'll be able to use both of those. And we're installing new digital signs at all of our schools. 4 elementary schools did not have those digital signs. So Snyder Signs is working on that, and those should be completed before the beginning of school too, which is coming soon. Our teachers return July the 29th, and they have 3 in-service days and a work day, and then our students will return for a 2-hour day on Friday, August the 2nd. The 2-hour day allows our students to meet their teachers, see their schedules, and it also provides our teachers and administrators with updated enrollment numbers to ensure that our teachers are assigned to the appropriate schools and grade levels prior to that first full day, which will be on Tuesday, August the 6th. So that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have one public hearing tonight, resolution establishing the Hideaway at Fox Meadows Residential Infrastructure Development District. This public hearing is hereby opened, and City Attorney Danielle Smith will present.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tonight, we're holding a public hearing, and I think we may be the first municipality in the state to hold such a public hearing. The legislature passed the Residential Infrastructure Development District Act of 2024, Public Chapter 860, in May of 2024. And very soon after, we received a petition under the act from Ardent Development Group and D.R. Horton Company. Ardent Development Group, the principal is Jerome Malinay, who is here, so he can answer questions as well. You may know Ardent as the developer of Fox Meadows. They've already completed phases 1, 2, and 3 of that development. Initially, the petition was for phases 4, 5, and 6. It was later amended so that it includes 4B, 4C, 5, and 6. 4A was taken out of it for various technical reasons. The petition was also signed by D.R. Horton, Inc., because D.R. Horton currently has contracts to purchase some of the lots that are inside this district. If City Council approves the district, it would establish it as a special assessment district where an assessment would be placed on each lot within the district annually for a period of time to be established by City Council. The petition requests that the assessment be $1,000 per year per lot for up to 12 years. So if that's how the establishment resolution is currently drafted, and if approved, that's what you would be granting. With the special assessment district, every property within that district is then responsible for paying, each lot is responsible for paying that assessment on an annual basis in much the same way that they pay their property taxes. The amount that's collected from that special assessment is then going to be used to fund the sanitary sewer infrastructure that's going in for phases 4B, C, 5, and 6. Other things to note in the resolution is that, again, we're collecting this on an annual basis, and the City Council would be delegating to the Industrial Development Board the ability to issue any kind of financing that's required. The resolution speaks in terms of bonds, but that's actually broader than just the typical bonds that we think of, and it does incorporate other kinds of municipal financing options. At this point, we don't know what those would be, but that would be something that the mayor and the Industrial Development Board would be given the authority to do under this resolution. The resolution was drafted by our outside counsel, our bond counsel at Bass Berry, and so Kelly and I obviously had input on it, but primarily the resolution was drafted by them, and the petition has also been reviewed by them and analyzed. And so we feel pretty confident that we're doing everything right for you to be able to legally set up the district, and it's really up to you to consider that. The public hearing is something that you're required to hold by state law in order to consider the resolution. So with that, I'll answer any questions you might have, and I think Mr. Maloney is here, and if there's any member of the public who wish to speak as well.
I think just clarification that it's up to 1,000. It's not set at 1,000.
Yes, it is up to 1,000.
Okay.
And so for transparency and clarification, we have a revenue stream that will offset the cost of whatever infrastructure bonds are put into place.
Yes. What would happen is any obligation that's entered into, whether it's a bond issuance or whether it's a loan, would be payable out of that special assessment, not out of general obligation of the city. It would be just payable from the assessment itself.
And of course, with Bass Berry and Sims, they've run through the formula so that we know that up to $1,000 will cover that expense.
I don't know that it's going to cover all of the expense of putting in sanitary sewer, but
Right.
that's all that is going to be available. So they can only borrow enough to be covered by that $1,000 per lot annually for 12 years.
Gotcha.
So
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address council on this matter tonight? Seeing none, this public hearing is closed. Next, we have our appearance of citizens, and actually no one signed up this evening. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address council? Oh, if you go to the podium and state your name and address.
So you can follow along with the pictures.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Erin O'Brien, and I'm a citizen of Bristol, Tennessee. I've given pictures of my trees before and after that had been slashed by the power board. Is there anybody here affiliated with the power board other than Mr. Turner, who's on the board of directors?
Yes, there's.
As you can clearly see in the pictures from the fall, and I don't expect an answer, but I do want to voice my concerns. My trees did not need trimming, and I've spent over $2,000 in the past to have them trimmed back from the power lines, so they wouldn't have to cut the way they were. So I don't know if Steve Craddock has spoke with you. Mr. Turner, I did send you an email and some other board members of the power board. Did he speak with you about that?
I have not spoken to him yet. No.
Okay, he told me he did speak with the board members.
I will say this, of the fact I ended up having to be unexpectedly out of town
Okay.
last week, and I wasn't at the meeting, so that may have been at the last board meeting.
Okay.
So,
So about 10 or 12 years ago, Aspenland came through and trimmed them back. But they fluffed back out, so the large branches that would be interfering with the power lines were not going to would never be there again to damage the power lines. I spent $1,400 in 2019, in the fall of 2019, to have them cut back again and topped off. So again, the power board wouldn't come through, or they wouldn't be interfering. That was money out of my pocket. And it takes away privacy from my home, shade that I enjoy being on my deck, just the whole appearance of my property. So I got a tree expert, Scott Roberts with Roberts Tree Service. And luckily, they'll be okay. they'll come back out, but I've got to have them balanced out, and I prefer to do that so they won't be so top-heavy and too heavy on one side. So, and I think it's fair to ask for the power board to pay for this, and the quote is in that file. Bristol, Virginia is trimming trees too, and they have the common courtesy to ask property owners and to tell them, inform them of what's going on before they just send a tree company in there to slice them down. And some owners, if they disagreed, they just went on to the next property owner. But, I mean, it's beyond sickening that I came home from work that afternoon and found my trees like that. So what I'm asking, the city or the power board to fit the bill of that quote so I can have my trees topped off, shaped up, to where they'll come back out nicely. And I just want to voice my frustrations that you all need to collaborate a little bit better on communication with property owners and let them have some say-so. But I've already spent enough money. The whole point is, and you can see in the pictures, my trees were not interfering with the power lines. They were not. And I don't know why they were cut like that.
Ms. Bryan, can you give us your address?
Yes, 300 Honeysuckle Lane.
Thank you.
Thank you. But I just wanted to voice my concerns, and if my contact information is in there, Mr. Turner, if somebody could get back with me on the power board, or I will mention, Mr. Craddock did call me the day after because I was really upset. And I wasn't real happy with the offer. They'll come back and cut them down and plant dogwoods at their expense. And that just doesn't compare to the beauty of the trees I have in my yard already. To me, it's just like taking a life from someone, a beautiful living thing. But again, if y'all could collaborate now and start working, communicating with property owners of what's going on. I did not get a notice. I did not get a text. I didn't get a phone call. I did not get a letter in the mail. Nothing of this. So that's all I wanted to say, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
you.
Is this for
Can
us, or
keep that? Okay.
would you, okay, do you want to, okay, I keep that, okay, okay. Okay, next we have appointments, and the first one is for the Better Property Board. We have 3 candidates for 3 open positions: Randall Cook, Pamela Lay, and John Taylor. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of any of the candidates?
I'll speak on the whole board and the work that they do, and so grateful. And it's been going a long time. When it was formed, it was formed to help to maintain properties better. And I can't remember if we started with residential and moved to commercial, or commercial and moved to residential, but it was one way or the other to do that. And I just appreciate what they do, and they methodically work with the owners to improve their properties, and they give everybody every chance and enough time to do what they can to improve their property. But if over time it doesn't happen, then they take action. But I just appreciate the people who are doing that. So.
Okay. You ready for? All right. So Councilwoman Fire-Robin has Randall Cook, Pamela Lay, and John Taylor. Councilman Luttrell has Randall Cook, Pamela Lay, and John Taylor. Vice Mayor Hutton has Randall Cook, Pamela Lay, and John Taylor. Councilwoman Powers has Randall Cook, Pam Lay, and John Taylor. And Mayor Turner has Randall Cook, Pam Lay, and John Turner.
Okay. Thank you. Next, we have the Park and Recreation Commission. We have 1 candidate for 1 position, Mr. Doug Harmon.
I can speak on behalf of Doug. Doug has been a real asset to the Parks and Rec Department, and especially with our new director of Parks and Rec. I know they're working very closely with Doug serving as the chair and with Mike, and look for some very exciting things to come from Parks and Rec, and know that y'all have it, and it's in good hands.
Ditto.
Yes.
Thank you, Doug.
Okay, so we have Councilwoman Feierabend has Doug Harmon, Councilwoman Powers has Doug Harmon, Vice Mayor Hutton has Doug Harmon, Mayor Turner has Doug Harmon, and Councilman Luttrell has Doug Harmon.
All right. Next, we have 3 positions for the Planning Commission, and they are Kelly Graham, Andrew Snyder, and Mark Webb. And there's 3 positions, and we have 3 candidates. Would anyone like to speak on behalf?
I can. I serve on the Planning Commission along with Malin on behalf of council. I think our Planning Commission is doing a lot of really good things. We're working very closely with our Planning Department. I appreciate Mr. Graham's involvement in that and the historical knowledge that he brings. I appreciate Andrew Snyder. He's newer to the Planning Commission and has been doing a great job. He's always well prepared when he comes. And of course, Dr. Mark Webb as well brings a lot of historical knowledge, as well as being our liaison to the Sullivan County Planning Commission. So I feel like we have 3 very strong candidates, and I'm glad that they've agreed to continue to serve.
And I'll ditto that. And I think it's nice to have a mix of different terms and different people.
Okay, we have Councilman Luttrell has Kelly Graham, Andrew Snyder, and Mark Webb. Mayor Turner has Kelly Graham, Andrew Snyder, and Mark Webb. Councilwoman Powers has Kelly Graham, Andrew Snyder, and Mark Webb. Vice Mayor Hutton has Kelly Graham, Andrew Snyder, and Mark Webb. And Councilwoman Feierabend has Kelly Graham, Andrew Snyder, and Mark Webb.
Okay. All right, next we have a position on the Power Board. We have 2 candidates for 1 position. We have David Akerd and Kelly Graham.
Mayor, I'd like to, for the sake of transparency, share that our family business does have a relationship with BTES, has had one for over 40 years. The determination of where their insurance is placed is an administrative determination, not a determination of the board. I looked this afternoon just for the general public's knowledge is that the revenues, the net revenues that we collect from BTS is less than 0.003%, and as such, I've conferred with our council and have been made aware that I am not in conflict in casting my vote tonight. Just wanted to put that out there. Has everybody already?
I'll speak to both of them.
Thank you.
To thank people for applying and for very qualified candidates. BTS Board is one that takes a whole realm of knowledge to learn and to operate with, and a lot of different things that need some attention paid to. I totally agree. So there's a lot involved. They also recently made a big change with Mike Browder's retirement and having some different changes. So for me, it's a very, very difficult decision, but I'm looking at all the different pieces and parts to cast my vote. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll just say that it's great anytime you can get multiple people applying for jobs. This particular commission is very, very important to the city of Bristol, Tennessee, and all of its residents. And just like Councilwoman Feierabend said, it's a very difficult decision, but we all have to come to grips and see what we can do with it.
Thank you.
No, I will just say, yes, it was a difficult decision. I serve on that board, serve on there with Mr. Akerd, And for me this evening, I've decided not to vote for either. And for me to be able to gather some more information to talk to both candidates. So if there's not a consensus, so that's.
All right. So Councilwoman Fire has David Akerd. Councilwoman Powers has David Akerd. Vice Mayor Hutton has none of the above. Mayor Turner has none of the above. And Councilman Luttrell has Kelly Graham. So, yes, none have 3 votes, so we can either revote or postpone to the next meeting.
I like to think we should postpone until next term.
Okay.
Without the 3 votes.
And can you explain how that works? So everybody here, we have the candidates here so they understand, and if that becomes posted again, et cetera, so.
Sure. The city's charter requires that any affirmative action or any action of city council requires the affirmative vote of 3 members of city council. And since there were only 2 votes in the affirmative, neither candidate received the requisite 3 votes. So no selection was made. Under city council's rules and procedures, if no candidate is elected to fill a vacant boards and commission position, then the appointment shall be deferred to the next regular meeting of city council. The applicants must resubmit their applications in order to be considered for this position. And the rules and procedures are available on the city's website if there are any questions about that.
All right, next we have 1 candidate and 1 position for the tree board, which is David Hacker. Anyone like to?
So I failed to check before I came. Do we still have a couple of openings on our tree board? Do we know?
I don't believe so, but I will verify.
Yeah, that would be great, because if there are a couple of openings, we want to be sure to encourage applicants to participate.
Okay, for tree board, we have Councilwoman Fire has David Hacker. Councilman Luttrell has David Hacker. Councilwoman Powers has David Hacker. Vice Mayor Hutton has David Hacker. And Mayor Turner has David Hacker.
All right, next we have 1 ordinance on the first reading, 1 on the second, and 2 resolutions to consider. The first reading of ordinance 24-10 is to amend Chapter 7 of our floodplain districts. Ms. Young will present.
Thank you, Mayor Turner, and good evening. Tonight, we're here for the first reading for ordinance 24-10, which is an ordinance to amend the flood chapter of the zoning ordinance, Chapter 7. This first reading and second reading are going to sound a little bit alike. In June, council approved what is on the second reading placeholder tonight as a first reading, and that was also an ordinance to amend the flood ordinance. It was a bit of a simple ordinance that just switched out some panel numbers for some new flood maps that were provided to us by FEMA. So that was approved on the first reading. Since first reading, June 4th, FEMA notified us that there are additional changes that we are to make to this flood ordinance that we weren't aware of on June 4th. So the ordinance for first reading tonight, 24-10, is an ordinance to encompass all of the changes requested by FEMA. There are 5 categories of changes. Some are fairly simple and administrative, but we've been asked to, number 1, add some definitions to our ordinance. So there are 3 definitions to be added. We're asked to revise the general provisions related to the flood maps and the dates of the maps. So some of the 2006 references will be remaining in this ordinance, and then some of all of the 2024 maps will be added as a result of this ordinance. We've been asked to remove a very specific form reference, and that's one of the administrative changes I would classify. Then we've been asked it's in a section 702E3 to add a term for substantial improvements, and these are very technical things. And we've been also asked to add a reference to some engineering methodology that's used when people file what's called a conditional letter of map amendment. A conditional letter of map revision. So this is very technical data that goes into some of the processes that FEMA uses to grant specific changes to properties due to their flood risk. We did present this new version of the ordinance to the Planning Commission, and that was on June 17th, and kind of described the situation and what had occurred since the Planning Commission first reviewed this. The Planning Commission did vote unanimously to send a favorable recommendation to you on this request. So this ordinance 24-10 will be scheduled for a public hearing and a second reading on July 30th. So that will be prior to the July 30th work session. And that is to meet the FEMA requirements that we adopt these new changes by July the 31st. The following ordinance, the second reading for 24-7, we would ask that council consider just voting that one down, voting no on that request. This is the replacement. And I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Have a motion?
Move to approve ordinance 24-10.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address council on this issue? Seeing none? Any discussion? Mary Lee?
Luttrell.
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Firerobin.
Yes.
Hutton.
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
Okay, next we have the second reading of ordinance 24-7, amending chapter 7, floodplain. Sean?
So thank you, Mayor Turner. This is the ordinance that was approved at first reading on June 4th. Due to the scope of changes that occurred in that month, this is the one that we would ask you to vote no on, just to terminate this ordinance. And then we have the first reading behind us. We'll have the second reading and public hearing on the replacement ordinance on July 30th.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve ordinance 24-7.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Just to clarify, Councilwoman Powers has moved to approve,
And we want to,
And then we'll vote to no.
Yeah.
yes, thank you.
okay.
Okay.
I did follow it, I think. Mary Lee.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address council on this issue? Seeing none. Mary Lee?
Luttrell.
No.
Powers.
No.
Firerobin.
No.
Hutton.
No.
Powers.
Again.
Again. Who did I skip?
Again,
I
no.
apologize. Who did I skip?
No.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's a big no.
So next, we have Resolution 24-64, establishing the Hideaway at Fox Meadows Infrastructure Development District. Ms. Smith presented to us at the public hearing portion of this. Is there any questions for Ms. Smith? Or do I have a motion on 24-64?
I move to approve Resolution 24-64.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address council on this? See none? Any discussion? Mary Lee?
Luttrell.
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Firerobin.
Yes.
Hutton.
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
Okay, next we have Resolution 24-65, approving a second amendment to the City of Bristol, Tennessee, City of Bristol redevelopment plan extending the term of the Volunteer Parkway South Redevelopment District, the Hudson Terrace. Smith?
Thank you, Mayor. As you all know, the City of Bristol adopted the Volunteer Parkway South Redevelopment District. I apologize, I blanked on the name on that, in 2022. What has happened now is that the development has taken longer to proceed than it was expected because of supply chain delays and other factors. And so therefore, what the developer requested from the Housing Authority was an amendment to the TIF that would basically extend the TIF financing by 2 years from what was originally contemplated. What actually happened in the amendment, if you go through the amendment, is that the final maturity date of the financing was extended to 2046. City Council, if they approve the amendment, would agree to that amendment to the housing plans, to the redevelopment district, and the Sullivan County would also have to approve it in order for the TIF to be effective. And I believe there are representatives from Landstar here to answer any questions as well, if you've got.
Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 24-65?
Move to approve Resolution 24-65.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address council on this? All right.
Mayor,
Any
just to
discussion?
be, yes, please. Just to be clear, it was a 20-year TIF that's now a 22-year TIF, just so everybody understands.
Essentially, yes. I think that's.
It's really pretty simple.
It has not started paying out yet either, so
Yes.
you've kind of extended
Had to
the
push it
start
out
date.
until it does, yeah.
So,
But just for the public, if you have an understanding of TIFs, then you understand that. I think it's easier sometimes for us to understand that it was a 20-year TIF that will now be pushed out for 2 years so that they can begin generating the revenues that would actually be offset, or that would actually offset the TIF.
right.
Thank you.
Anything else? Mary Lee?
Luttrell,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Fire
Yes.
Hutton,
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
All right, next we are to the consent agenda. Need some water?
Take a big breath.
I know. I may have to take a break in the middle here. All right. We have the minutes of the June 4th City Council meeting, minutes of the June 11th, 2024 City Council called meeting, approval of the minutes of the June 25th City Council work session, approval of Resolution 24-66, approving an agreement with Abuse Alternatives for funding support, approval of Resolution 24-67, approving an agreement with Believe in Bristol for funding support, approval of Resolution 24-68, authorizing an appropriation agreement with the Birthplace of Country Music for funding support, approval of Resolution 24-69, authorizing an appropriation agreement with the Bristol Chamber of Commerce for program support in FY25, approval of Resolution 24-70, authorizing an appropriation agreement with the Bristol Regional Speech and Hearing Center for funding support in FY25, approval of Resolution 24-71, authorizing an appropriations agreement with Bristol Regional Tourism Marketing Corporation, or Explore Bristol, for FY25, approval of Resolution 24-72, authorizing an appropriation agreement with Family Promise of Bristol, approval of Resolution 24-73, authorizing an appropriation agreement with the Paramount Foundation, approval of Resolution 24-74, authorizing an appropriation agreement with Sullivan County Family Justice Center or the Branch House, approval of Resolution 24-75, authorizing an appropriation agreement with Theater Bristol, approval of Resolution 24-76, awarding a bid for the purchase of highway paint and pavement markings, approval of Resolution 24-77, awarding a bid for the purchase of stone and sand, approval of Resolution 24-78, awarding a bid for the purchase of in-place asphalt, approval of Resolution 24-79, awarding a bid for the purchase of bulk asphalt products, approval of Resolution 24-80, awarding a bid for the purchase of bulk concrete products, approval of Resolution 24-81, awarding bids for the purchase of bulk water and sewer supplies, approval of Resolution 24-82, awarding a bid for sidewalk replacement, approval of Resolution 24-83, authorizing the purchase of software support from Tyler Technologies, that's for both Encode and Munis, approval of Resolution 24-84, authorizing the purchase of software support for the local government corporation systems, which is NextGen Zortec, approval of Resolution 24-85, approving the interlocal cooperations agreement with Emergency Communications District of the City of Bristol, approval of Resolution 24-86, awarding a bid for the CDBG Housing Rehabilitation Specialist, approval of Resolution 24-87, authorizing the submittal of an application to FTA, Federal Transit Administration Urbanized Area Formulas Grant, for transit capital assistance, approval of Resolution 24-88, authorizing the purchase of a GMC terrain under the state contract for the General Services Department, approval of Resolution 24-89, awarding a bid for purchase of a Ford Bronco for the Economic Development, Approval of Resolution 24-90, awarding a bid for the purchase of a Dodge Durango for the fire department. Approval of Resolution 24-91, authorizing the purchase of a fire engine through Sourcewell. Approval of Resolution 24-92, awarding the purchase of a utility task vehicle for the fire department. Approval of Resolution 24-93, authorizing the purchase of self-contained breathing apparatus cylinders through Sourcewell. Approval of Resolution 24-94, authorizing the purchase of tablets for the fire department through the Omnia Partners Cooperative Purchasing Association. Approval of Resolution 24-95, authorizing submittal of the Connected Community Facilities Grant application. Approval of Resolution 24-96, authorizing the temporary use of public property by Tennessee Hills Distillery for the service of complimentary samples of alcoholic beverages for the Hoppy Possum Festival. Approval of Resolution 24-97, authorizing purchase of police vehicles under the state contract. Approval of Resolution 24-98, authorizing the purchase of police vehicle equipment also under the state contract. Approval of Resolution 24-99, authorizing the purchase of radar equipment for the police department, also under the state contract. Approval of Resolution 24-100, authorizing the purchase of tasers for the police department. Approval of Resolution 24-101, authorizing the purchase of in-car video systems with body cameras. Approval of Resolution 24-102, authorizing annual purchases of multiple items from vendors throughout the fiscal year for various departments. Approval of Resolution 24-103, awarding the bid for high-density mineral bond paving preservation. Approval of Resolution 24-104, authorizing the City of Bristol to join the State of Tennessee and other local governments in amending the Tennessee State Subdivision Opioid Abatement Agreement and approving the related settlement agreement. Approval of Resolution 24-105, authorizing entry into a memorandum of understanding and an addendum to same between Bristol, Tennessee City School Systems and the City of Bristol for the SRO program for FY25. Approval of Resolution 24-106, authorizing the city to enter into a Safe Streets for All grant agreement and local match cost-sharing agreement. Approval of Resolution 24-107, authorizing the submission of an application for a multimodal access grant to fund the Weaver Pike sidewalk improvements. Approval of Resolution 24-108, authorizing the emergency replacement of HVAC units at the Slater Center. Approval of Resolution 24-109, approving the sale of attractive real property owned by the City of Bristol for the benefit of BTS to TBA, along with a conveyance of related easements, and that would be for transmission lines and access. And we have approval of Resolution 24-110, authorizing the renewal of a lease agreement for parking lot on 6th Street. And finally, approval of Resolution 24-111, authorizing payment to Troutman, Pepper, Hamilton, Sanders for legal fees.
Would anyone in the audience like to address council on any of these? Would any member of council like an item removed? Do I have a motion?
Motion, go ahead. Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. Mary Lee?
Luttrell,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Firerobin,
Yes.
Hutton,
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
Next, we have our city manager's report.
All I have this evening is just a reminder that on July 30th, we have a 3 o'clock budget work session, and then the 5 o'clock special called meeting that Sheriff mentioned earlier on the floodplain ordinance. And then immediately following that meeting, we'll have our regular work session. And we do have Scott Gibson lined up to be in attendance at that meeting. And that's all I have tonight.
Okay. Council comments?
I'll jump in, and I'm just going to go through and report on the different areas that I serve outside of council. Planning is to be commended along with our administrative staff on putting together Resolution 2464, first in the state. We have become very good at being first in the state on many different things. So I appreciate your hard work on that. The IDB, we have a very invigorated IDB that is very engaged. Tom Anderson provides the leadership for that along with Raj. And Networks, we have many different projects that are in the pipeline. And Networks is tourism at its best. It extends into Hawkins County at Phipps Bend, as well as in Kingsport, the greater region of Sullivan County, as well as Bristol, Tennessee. And I thank everyone for their vote through the consent agenda for the easement to TVA. We've got the largest, Vince, what would you call it, out on 394? It's the largest substation between Knoxville and Roanoke. So, again, leading the way for our region. In regard to the BCM, Bristol Rhythm and Roots is September 11th, 12th, and 13th. If you haven't gotten your tickets, please grab your tickets. We've got a great lineup with Ashley McBride. The Wallflowers will be here. I don't know if you're, surely you are. We're all about the same age, so the Wallflowers are a real treat. The festival is known for being a festival of launching new talent. Red Clay Strays have performed at Red Rocks, and they will be at Bristol Rhythm and Roots as well. A big shout out to our Department of Community Engagement and Events. If you missed the 4th of July, you just missed it. It was awesome. From the parade, Anderson Park was packed. Terry, any estimate on how many people?
A lot.
From where we were sitting, there were tens of thousands. So, and the firework display could not be any better. Hoppy Possum, do we have a date on Hoppy Possum? It's October. First weekend in October. And along with that, we've got the Sounds of Summer and Sounds on 6th. It was 80s this past month, and it was a huge success. We continue. I'd like to give a shout out to the police department. I have a grandson attending police camp this week, and he definitely has decided he does not want to go to jail. So that's a good thing, and I appreciate their influence. That's all I have this evening from my different areas to report.
I'll just say that, you know, as always, very proud of our employees of Bristol, Tennessee City. They always do exceptional work and go beyond and above the call of duty. And just as a reminder to everyone in here and people that are watching, you know, during these hot days, we need to make sure that we're staying hydrated and staying as cool as possible, not only for us humans, but also look at your pets and make sure they're staying in the shade as well and keep cleaning water for them.
Okay, sure. I've got a few things. July 4th, yes, want to ditto thanks so much for Believe in Bristol and for our events folks for putting that on. And with that and celebrating around town, I would encourage us as a city to put out as much information about fireworks within our city limits being illegal. This year I noticed more. I noticed bigger events in my neighborhood and dogs barking and kids who can't go to sleep. And there's been a lot more information about our veterans and people in the service and what those fireworks what kind of effect. Fireworks are legal in Sullivan County. They're legal there because there's lots of room and lots of space, and the living quarters aren't as close as they are in the city. But I know we had a lot of violations in our neighborhood, and it's very difficult to deal with, and I appreciate Chief Austin was here earlier. I appreciate what it takes for our police department to help work with citizens who are affected by those fireworks. Also wanted to just say I'm on the library board. We should be seeing their electric vehicle, wrapped vehicle soon. I don't have the exact date. I think they're going to have a press conference when it starts. Farmers Market, just want to say that they started this past Wednesday for their Wednesdays from 2 to 6. And schools wanted to thank y'all very much, and I go as liaison. And this summer we didn't have a schools report, but they have schools report every time that are very interesting, seeing what our schools are doing to help our children grow and to be safe and secure. And I really appreciate learning that, and appreciate everything y'all do and doing the summer session and really trying to reach the children that have a little struggle to be successful, and pay attention to them and give them every opportunity. Ms. O'Brien, I want to thank you for coming. There are a lot of complaints out there, but people to step up and come and speak publicly, I appreciate your doing that, and I hope that there can be more discussion, because I know in my neighborhood that just got started recently that there are many trees that did not need to have done what was done to them, and it costs BTS more money to do that. And the tree cutters need to be monitored better for how they're taking their job. And I do realize, and I know we were in desperate need of trimming trees away from our power lines. So I totally agree with that part of it. So, and I wanted to ask, can anybody just say what's going on at the motel in case people haven't noticed that they are working on it? And
They're taking it down. There is actually activity at the motel at the intersection of State Street and Volunteer Parkway. I think they've had equipment up there for a while, but there are definitely people and activities going on regularly now, which is great.
And I think I saw a pile of stuff to be taken away, and you can see people actually working on it. So I really appreciate that is finally in motion to have something done, and appreciate this council for taking action to help make that happen. The other is, I'll just ditto your sentiments on heat, and not only for our citizens to be really careful, but we have our staff, that many of our staff have to work in this heat, whether they're out mowing, which doesn't need doing too much right now, working on sewer lines, water lines, whatever that is out there being worked on, and just we really appreciate it, and also know that that's really hard on our bodies. So for us as a city to be sure that we do everything possible to be sure that our employees are taking care of themselves. So thank you very much.
Okay. With that, I guess I will say thank you, Mayor Burles, for coming this evening and joining us. Yes, absolutely. And thanks to everyone else that came out this evening. And we're adjourned.